Okay, good afternoon. One of the things that this place was a little difficult to find, thank you, so we're going to take it a little easy for the next few minutes, just kind of get to know each other just for a few minutes, and then we'll get into the program. So let me just give you a little bit of background. It is really great that we have the two leaders of India, or rather we call it US-Indo program or Indo-US program, two of the leaders who actually started this or made it happen. My predecessor, gentleman named Dr. Leon Elwine, and director of NEI Institute, who is my boss, Dr. Paul Sieving, and worked with Dr. Baluji and, of course, working with Dr. Nagarauji to start a concept. And clearly this concept folks in India presented to their government, Department of Biotechnology, and then people on my side, the National Eye Institute, they worked with the leaders of NIH and our Ministry of Health, that's called Department of Health and Human Services. Make a long story short, it was an effort that had never been done before, so people were very skeptical. People just didn't know how to do it. And so about 15 years ago, this program was born on a trial basis, and we stand here today. We have some success stories. We have a number of collaborative programs that have been successfully completed in India, and this program has been refined and expanded. Yesterday we had a session, although it was related to NGOs, but there were a lot of people. There was a standing room only, and unfortunately there are a lot of people who were interested, and that program also showed up in the index book, in the program book. So they all came to that, this room full of people, and then Dr. Natarajan and I got stopped outside, and we spent another hour just discussing about Indo-US program. But clearly so the organizers wanted to put a separate session on that because they feel that this is very important because of the interest in folks who want to do something, some folks who have not actually been part of this effort. So I thought, I'll just put together some of the slides here, which is a joint presentation with my moderator or chairperson, Dr. Baluji. So I'm going to run through some of this slide, and then I want to have a sort of a format that we're looking for some good ideas, some things that can be done, what we may not have thought of. And you can imagine that working with two large bureaucracies and two governments, government of United States, huge bureaucracy, and of course government of India. I'm not saying in any way there's a negative. I'm basically saying that working with the government program, it's not an easy task, but we have done it. And the program is very much not only alive, but the program is growing. So let's just go through some stuff here. Okay, so what happened here? So the opinions expressed here, I may give you my own personal, especially in this sort of setup. I'll give you my Angan version, right, Samrat? Right. Okay. So NIH, as some of you already know all this, but NIH is a part of our Ministry of Health, which is, we call it Department of Health and Human Services. And look at the goals of this, that as we not only are interested in biomedical research and uncovering new knowledge that improves the health of all Americans, and the human condition throughout the world. So clearly, NIH mandate is to work and learn about humans all around the world. So National Eye Institute is one of the 27 institutes and ICs, we call it institutes and centers, that is dedicated to just doing research in eye diseases. And our budget is close to $800 million this year. We have a little advantage, budget goes up and down, but clearly having a very clear mandate about doing eye research that keeps us actually moving forward with increasing budget. And unfortunately, everyone whosoever is aging is will have eye diseases, and Americans are very interested. So now this is a slide I showed this morning. I joined just around this time, about 5 years ago, and we were working with about 10 countries, 32 programs worldwide, and this has grown from 13 countries to 30 countries almost. But more than that, it's not the number, which countries. India will always be added here and here and here, but the number of programs that are working, number of projects that we have has grown from 32 to close to 180 just in last 4 or 5 years. So that clearly shows that international collaboration is well into very strong growth mode. Okay, so our view, NEI's view of international research is that we believe truly global science is truly an international interconnected. We seek opportunities to identify what our shared priorities are. So US-Indo program is very much a story of shared priorities, supporting opportunities in specific and scientific research areas that are good and useful to both the countries, and we'll get into that. We're supporting also, it's all about that since NIH money comes from the taxpayer money, and DBT in the government of India money comes also from taxpayer money. So we support the US grantees, and obviously the DBT, government of India, supports the Indian grantees. And but in addition to joint collaborative work, we also partner with scientists, government companies, NGOs that we talked about yesterday in great length. So in addition to, so it's a multi-pronged approach. It's a US-Indo program, grants and funding through application is just one piece. It's a very important piece. But there are a couple more important pieces here. The second piece is that we have had a long-standing relationship with India in terms of postdoctoral fellows that are being trained and have been trained at NIH, at NEI. If you see a number here, just last year, this number, out of 90 people the junior scientists that are being trained at the postdoctoral fellow level, obviously the first one of the maximum number are from US, but India is right next to the US. So that shows that these people, the young scientists who are being trained, and they will be there for a number of years during their training, they are building a lifelong relationship. And we see this very, very profound here in India. There's Dr. Balu is also an illustrious example of that. He spent some time with us, and look here, we have an Indo-US program. Similarly, we are not keeping them all here. We are sending people back. Baluji came back. As you can see here, there are a number of scientists that have come back to India just in the last about 9 years. 34 scientists returned to India. And they're working with their collaborators in the US. These relationships generally never end. So this is Dr. Paul Sieving, who is my boss, director of the Institute. And this is his vision. I like to put this up. And he's talking about, obviously, training of the next generation of scientists is very important to us, addressing the global eye diseases. Some things is just impossible to study in America because we don't have the required N value, large number, and such things are very possible in India. Unfortunately, trauma cases, toxins exposure, unique patient population. Deep Shikhaji is here and Samrat there. We were just talking about the unique patient population in Chhattisgarh. So Samrat joined us at the symposium workshop we did for Global Eye Genetics Consortium in Delhi. So we spent a lot of time talking about unique patient population. We spent almost 3/4 of the day, which I'll tell you will play a very important role. So similar things, we always like to say that there are exciting opportunity to develop new things, and it doesn't matter whether it gets developed in Raipur or in somewhere in America. So this is, I like to put this up as a sort of a historical number that came several years ago in Nature, and I have never updated it because there's no need to. We've seen there's a lot of internationalization of our work. There's a decrease in the percentage of exclusive domestic papers, publications in the U.S., and obviously there's a great increase, and now this number has even gone pretty farther. So, and it also, a lot of scientists look at their work not only for bedside use, but they also look at the citation impact, the impact factors, and things like that. So clearly, some of these publications talk about the citation impacts are generally greater when research groups collaborate, and benefits strengthens when the co-authorship is international. So that speaks highly of international coordination and collaboration. And international collaboration literally has very strong and profound influence on the placement of journals, the quality of journals. And I'm going to, at this point, leave this, since I said Dr. Baluji and I will share this. This is the Indo-US program, the very first round of, and then we had the second round where we expanded, and the third round, which is ongoing right now. So I'm going to give this, ask Baluji to talk about a little bit what the concept was, whether this program has, whether we have met the goals of this, and what his thoughts are. Is that what he thought? And let's make it a sort of interactive Angan type approach so that we can share with each other. And let's find if there are issues we can discuss. Fortunately, just happened that Baluji has been kind enough to set up my meeting with the Secretary of Department of Biotechnology, along with the key members on my way back from here before I fly back to Washington. So I'll be meeting the Secretary, and I can personally take all this message, and they know that we are having this session. And I'm also talking to a lot of people during this conference, so I'm collecting all those ideas. So if you have any, let's open it. After Baluji completes these slides, we're going to get into discussion.
Thank you, Gyan. I should give you a little bit of the history of how this entire thing happened. There has been a lot of interest in terms of collaboration almost from the day NEI started. I say this because the first director of National Eye Institute was actually an outstanding ophthalmic scientist as well, and that is Karl Kupfer. Karl Kupfer at that time, along with two other outstanding people, one, Jin Kinoshita, who used to be in Japan but moved over to, I think essentially post-war, he moved over to America, and these two were very enthusiastic about international collaboration. The third one, who I think we should remember as an Indian, who recently passed away, is a silent man who's been doing remarkable work in education and in ophthalmic research, Professor Venkat Reddy, or Ven Reddy as he is called. Okay, he used to work as a professor first in New York and then moved over to Michigan, where he actually started an outstanding institution. Not only that, he also put together international collaborations, first between Japan and America, particularly with respect to the lens and associated cataract disorders and so on. So we have already this kind of a background. And in India, about the same time, I would say more like about 1980 onwards, apart from doing clinical work on clinical research using both in terms of drugs, new developments in terms of instrumentation and so on, actually basic research started, notably in 3 institutions or 4 institutions. And that was very good. And several of them actually turned out to have people who actually hired scientists. And there was a lot of interaction that went on between the scientists and the clinicians. And that's really how the initiation really of collaborative research between, not only between clinicians and basic scientists, but also international collaboration started. We all know about how already in the Arvind Eye Hospital system, a lot of people from America used to come and work together. We quickly moved from just giving samples where you can start working and then work together and so on, into initiate research from India itself and find collaborators. Collaborators both in terms of international and national collaborators and so on. And I think one who initiated this in a very long and very distinguished way is Nag, who is sitting here, Dr. G.N. Rao. Initially, it was far more with respect to Australia, but very quickly we also turned over into America and so on. And also aided by this was this remarkable institution called ARVO, Association for Research in Vision and Ophthalmology. And as you know, they hold an annual meeting, and it's been going on now for decades. And several of us from India would go and present our work and so on. And when people meet together, as the logo here for Cafe Coffee Day says, a lot can happen over coffee. In fact, a lot did happen over coffee, and collaborative research started. It was about this time, close to about 2004 or so, an interaction in one of these meetings happened between Dr. Rao and the new director after Kalkapur, who is now Dr. Paul Sieving, who had moved as a new director and so on. Why not formalize something of this kind? About the same time, the same RO meeting, I met at that time with the RO president, David Beebe. Alas, he is no longer there. We should also pay our respects to David for having initiated this. And we decided it will be nice to have an Indo-American seminar, collaboration. And this happened in the middle of 2005. Paul Sieving had come. Along with him came David Beebe, Janie Wiggs, Paul Kaufman, and from India, an entire group of the Indian Eye Research Group also came together. And at that time, the idea of why not actually formalize this collaboration between America and India through what you may call the US-India Collaborative Project. We had some models at that time. For example, there was already a US-Israel collaboration, US-Korea collaboration, US-Italy collaboration, and so on. So time seemed ripe that we must also have US-India collaboration. And as a result of this interaction and this workshop that we had, the Indo-American workshop that we had at the Eli Prasada Institute, we moved on from there to actually formalize the Indo-US Collaborative Vision Research Program. That started already around 2006. With respect to the finances, there was a little bit of an issue at that time. And the issue was, can NEI put apart a certain amount of grant money essentially only for the collaboration? That did not seem possible. And the idea then was, they will support the American partner, and we will find a way for the Indian partner to try and see if there can be an Indian grant award also. How to do that, I must again pay my compliments and respect to Leon Elwine, who actually sweet-talked at that time DBT. Dr. Maharaj Bhan was involved in that, and he pointed out, already you see there is a India collaboration in other areas of medical research, child health, and community reaction and so on. And so we also had at that time the Director General of the Indian Council for Medical Research, Professor N.K. Ganguly. So both these people went together along with a couple of us to sign this Indo-American bilateral collaboration project around 2006. And then again, as what Gyan pointed out, the initial one was along these lines. And the argument was like this: the American collaborator, for example, in this particular case of Indo-US genetic study of ocular quantitative traits, the US partner was Professor Jenny Wiggs from Harvard, and the Indian partner from Sankar Nethralaya was Ronnie George from Sankar Nethralaya in Chennai. In fact, it is now running through the second stage. It's been remarkably successful. The second has been with respect to the role of vitreous liquefaction in age-related nuclear cataract. That is really between me and David Beebe. There was not too much that we needed to do. Basically, we tried and looked at how much the liquefaction will happen during nuclear cataract and so on. And you see a few more like this. Identification of primary open-angle glaucoma biomarkers that happened on with the Arvind people in Madurai and so on. The particularly interesting thing, which I think should still continue, is the characterization of retinal degeneration, obese rat model. The National Institute of Nutrition in Hyderabad has a remarkable animal house. And they have unusual animals. One of them is actually an obese rat, which has been used for quite a while in terms of metabolic disorders and various. And why not look at also the ocular aspects of this and so on? And that is how, between Dr. Bhanuprakash Reddy of National Institute of Nutrition, Hyderabad, and Dr. Radha Ayagiri, was from the University of California in San Diego. And finally, the last thing was the Project Prakash. This is something which is quite unusual and I think very welcome. From Harvard or from MIT, we really have Dr. Yes, Pawan Sinha. Here, an interesting project. He will look at people who are cataract blinded for 20 years, 30 years. What is the brain doing to those when they have just all the four senses? Now what do I do if I give them the fifth sense? Go with the hospitals in Shroff and places like this, bring them over, largely from the Delhi, UP area, Noida, and I think as far as Meerut or something is where he had gone. He would go and ask the Shroff people to restore vision by doing bilateral cataract surgery. And then he will look at what their reaction to the brain in terms of, are they new neurons? Are there new synapses? What are these? Now you see, an advantage here was these people have already been given sight. That's already a remarkable and very, what shall I say, welcome. Therefore, the name was Project Prakash. And it still goes on. So these are the 5 that happened. As you can see, this is 2006 on until now. We are now 9 years later. Why? 13 years later, in fact. And we need to now look at what the second round is and so on. And the second round already happened. And that's the next slide, yes. But you notice what has been done so far is focusing on certain aspects and not all aspects of eye biology. This particular one, for example, is glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy. And notice also in this slide what's being done. Applications are invited for the parallel R01. It doesn't have to be R01. I think it could be any kind of a grant, isn't it? It has to be R01 because it's an AI. Okay. And
investigator-initiated grant. So the idea has to come from the investigator.
okay, and from India side. And this one again, notice both of these are essentially from Sangha Nethralaya. What we need now is essentially broaden this. It has already been done. Beyond these, a couple of years ago, Dr. Gyan Prakash pointed out, we can actually open this to many more. The program areas is now almost all areas of research. This, I think, is very important. It's important because not only has biology moved, ocular biology moved, but it has also been possible for us to now start predicting things. Predicting things of what are the possibilities. If you look at all available data, do machine learning, deep learning, trying to find out what are the problems and how we can start working with them and so on. Many of our institutions have a very large number of patient data. Been going on for years and decades, in fact. And if you start looking at, based essentially on what are the problems that we now can think in terms of, what are the methods by which we can actually approach these problems, and so forth. There are 2-3 things. One is, of course, just look at the data and start looking at what is going to be the next year's or the next decade's problem. For example, myopia would be one. Diabetic retinopathy, what have we done with that, and so on. The other kind of a thing also is, it's now possible to think in terms of, based on the genetics or genome analysis and so on, you might be able to get possible target molecules, whether they are proteins that are going to bind somewhere or whatever small molecules that can actually trigger a given gene or stop a gene from working and so on. And this is now possible, again, by doing large-scale computer modeling. As of today, it's possible to predict the structure of about 30,000 proteins just using the machine, not any longer like what I used to do. These machines will actually start thinking in terms of, we will now develop 3-dimensional architecture of these molecules, find out where are all the binding sites. Can we start working at them? Same thing has happened in the case of drugs. Pharmaceutical companies now fully aware of this kind of a thing. Can we move it here? The other, there's a public health. And the fourth is bioengineering, one area we are not even touched. And these are all areas where we can try and look at. Another new area is vision physics. People call that vision neurophysics. Some people call it vision psychophysics. Some people call it essentially vision physics in terms of new models of reproducing what the eye does and so on. So I think these are some areas. You also notice one other thing here, and that is, it's a small group of people who have been interacting so far. Significant number happens to be non-governmental institutions. I think it's important that we widen the scope. We widen also not only the areas which has already been done, and again, thanks to Gyan, the expansion of programs which says almost, it doesn't have to be almost, it can be all areas, in fact. And I think that would be here. The idea must come either from India or from your partner in America. I think that's important. So I think in the absence of that, it simply cannot be what my friend Syed Hasnan used to call as FedEx research. I send samples, you make the, you bring the results, we work it together. No longer. That cannot be. Ideas must come from both sides. I think these are areas that we must start thinking in terms of groups of this kind that we have, when we have meetings with the AIOS, when we have meetings with the Indian Eye Research Group. I also notice there is very little interaction between AIOS and and RO, Indian RO. IERG now, thanks to this interaction that happened from 2005 on, and our working together in annual RO meetings, from 2013, the Indian Air Research Group actually is the India RO. So I think that's important that we bring more clinicians in there. Start thinking in terms of what the problems are. Problems both in terms of genetics, problems in terms of spread of various ways of addressing public health issues, specifically ocular issues and so on. Now, he talked also about a little bit of the what you may call red tape. There is red tape, and there's red tape from both sides, from the Indian side and from the American side. In fact, I happen to be part of the group that actually looks at these programs, and when we met several months ago, there was this particular problem. And that is, one is every investigator, no matter where you are, whether you're in India or America and so on, you must end up getting, you upload your name or the Indian PI along with something called the Data Universal Numbering System, DUNS. Okay. We didn't know anything about this thing. Fortunately, when we talked about this now, that has now been taken care of. So in the next meeting, in fact, the moment when you go over now to DBT, you point out how it is to be done. Would you say it?
So I think let's just discuss it. Can you hear me now? Okay, so let's just discuss it. So when we started the third round, and you can stay there, so please. So when we started the third round of the program, the number one thing we did, we used to have only three areas: ophthalmic genetics, the inflammation, and the third area was diabetic retinopathy. So we expanded it. We both worked out a list of areas. The AIOS people looked at it. Of course, Baluji
AC band karwa dijiye.
They're not able to close the AC? Okay, so both sides actually, they came out with the solicitation, the funding announcement, and the submission date was November 9th, 2018. And as you know, if you're doing something new, we were just not aware, people were not aware of it here in the US, in India. And they started literally 2-3 days before, maybe a week before, and they found out that they needed to be registered in the American system. And the DUNS number that we talked about is something that takes about 4 to 5 weeks to really get all the response. Your paper, it's like just, earlier today I was trying to actually log on to the Wi-Fi here, and I had to have an Indian phone number. I could not find a better example. And I don't have an Indian phone number. I have an American phone number. So how do I access the Wi-Fi, and how do I go into the details of AIOC programs? I have no way, because they did not send anything to me to Washington. Obviously, it's a very thick packet. Why would I want them to spend the money to send it to Washington? I was pre-registered, complimentary to the AIOC. I was invited guest, and that was okay. I thought I would come in and I will actually be able to register and get online, and every day I would be able to get on what the program is. And I was frantically this morning looking to see that what's listed here in the program book for this session. And I tried for several hours. And nobody actually could find the program. So clearly, I had to actually get on the web, and I don't have an Indian phone number. So therefore, they cannot send me a code, and they were not sending a code to my American number. And I still am not on Wi-Fi. Whatever I'm using data, the global number that's working here. It's going to America and coming back here, and obviously it's a very expensive system, but I'm getting all the emails and texts that is going between us. So what do we do? I should have gotten a SIM that's working, which would be time consuming, right? I would need to get out and buy a SIM, which is not a big deal. So similarly, Indian PIs, they need to register. And unfortunately, it takes about 3 to 4 weeks to get all the formalities. The simple formalities, no big deal. Just get your 4-digit code and you'll be log on and all that. But there's a backlog. You know, all other countries are trying to log in the same. We have US-China program. We have US-Brazil program. We have US-UK program. There are several programs. And fortunately, and interestingly, some of these programs were designed exactly on the model of Indo-US program, which people like Baluji had actually helped to put it together. So this worked as a precursor.
But I think in any event, this Duns thing will be taken care of.
It is actually taken. So
the other issue also is with
the reason I'm
respect to-
describing that they need to take care of it here in India.
Yes.
So
on
you
the
will have to
22nd
register.
when you meet, I think it should be possible to take care
You
of it
will
from
have
the
to
Indian
register
side.
at least to start the process month ahead of
other,
time. This is available already.
Yeah.
Don't wait till October. Don't wait till September. Do it now. So you have the DUNS number. You can move forward. Go ahead, please. Other one,
The second issue with respect to that
please.
is there's each Indian PI also needs to have a valid what they call ERA. ERA is Electronic Research Administration Commons account. I have no idea what it is, but I'm
Yeah.
sure he's going to fix it.
So
Okay.
So when the USPI grants are being reviewed by the peer group, by the panel, people like Baluji, you're doing review here, we are doing it there, we have no idea what needs to be done, what is going to be done in India. We are just seeing what American PIs are reporting. We are not seeing what they want to do in Chennai, until they make an effort to upload and send it. And most Indian PIs are not doing it, did not do it. So we are seeing only half the story. And I believe this similarly the case, you're seeing only half this story.
It's the same thing. But the Indian PI does not know. I mean, people who are sitting around to look at the project don't know what the American part is.
Yeah.
So that business of what the American partner, what is his entire RO1 plan and so on, and the Indian partner, what has he submitted, these are important. They might already have done it together by, individual email exchange and so on.
Yeah.
But I think it's required that we get to know in detail what the Indian PI plans to do to the American,
With the American PI.
and what the American plans to do in India. This is
It's
an
wise.
obvious thing, but it has not happened all this
Yeah.
while.
So
But that also should be.
So
taken
you
care
haven't, if you haven't sent a paper copy, if you haven't actually uploaded it in the given format, it was not being read. It's neither being read here nor being read there. So one of the system that NIH has is we declared it as a multi-PI system. You register as a principal investigator in the American system and just say that you're applying to the Indo-US program, and that allows you and opens you and gives you a sort of a space to you can upload it, and it gets attached to the USPI program. And when a reviewer like Baluji is doing here, American reviewers get to see both sides, and then there's a complete story. So unfortunately what happened because of that, since everybody started just a few days before, they missed the DUNS number,
One thing.
they missed the ERA number. So now I'm just going around and telling people here, if you're interested, go ahead and get those formalities done. Register in DUNS and ERA. So when time comes in September, October, when you are uploading it, you have some preliminary data to say that I want to ask this research question. You are done with DUNS and ERA. You're just uploading your project. So that's what
See,
we
this
did.
other thing also that says here, applications are invited for parallel RO1 funding. An Indian generally does not apply for an RO1. RO1, for those who might want to know what it is an individual grant proposal. Generally, It is actually open to the entire world, not necessarily only India. In fact, I think we were the first, Nag and I think, were the first ones to get into an AIOC1 grant for India. It's available, but because it's a bilateral project, the DBT will fund you. Okay, so you do not have to apply to America for this. You have to apply for a joint grant proposal. Your US partner will have an AIOC1. You must have a DBT grant. Okay. Towards this, some of us will work towards the DBT to set apart a certain amount of money for this grant proposal as well. These are two of the issues that I think, I'm sure when you people get together on the 22nd between Gyan Prakasha and the DBT people, Renu Swaroop, Alka Sharma and Jyoti Logani and so on, we can take care of this.
Yeah.
But my request even today is, now that the program areas have really expanded, it's particularly important that more and more people come, more people from other parts of India come over. For example, the last round, we had people who coming from PGI, Chandigarh. We had one group that has come from the Sanjay Gandhi in Lucknow. I think we need more such. And I think we need to expand our areas, not just glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, genomics and so on, but go beyond that as well. And I think particularly interesting would be areas of public health, areas of bioengineering, of vision physics and so on. Right now, for example, our own institute, one of my colleagues is working with Professor Brigitte Roeder from University of Hamburg to look at essentially the Project Prakash type, but on children. And there are some absolutely remarkable results that are coming here. You can't put a child in an fMRI as is possible for Project Prakash with the adults. So you put in skull caps and actually interrogate several regions of the brain, and you find very interesting results, both in terms of how long does it take for vision to be acceptable. Are there what you may call as residual time before you can see, the spatiotemporal changes and so on. Some of these are remarkably well done in colleagues in the US and so on. That's one area. Artificial intelligence, I think this is something where India can help the American collaborator, because as you know, places in Bangalore, Hyderabad and Chennai are particularly good in terms of AI. We have groups that already are predicting the structures of proteins, nucleic acids, RNAs, and so on. So those are questions that can be interrogated very easily by the American partner. In other words, you don't have to always think of American partner as somehow the one who has the today's knowledge and we need to use and so on. It must be the other way around as well. And I think areas of public health we can teach. Areas of artificial intelligence and deep learning and so on is something we can actually start teaching and so on. I think these are areas that I think we should look at. But any other thing, I think that's about it.
There be any interest in the area of patient-related outcomes? It's become a big area of research.
So,
A lot of money is being spent by universities.
so one of the things is, you may know, NEI, we don't do any of the programs that are economics oriented. However, you can ask any research question and any project related to health services. So unless it's for, let's say, a survey related things that could be applied for quality of life, that would be very difficult to actually be put in this program. But if you are asking a research question related to health services, a basic research question, that can be put in.
Okay, so
Health services research.
so the big programs in American universities, patient-related outcomes, they get no NIH funding?
It depends where where they're going. There is an Office of Behavioral Research. If it relates to behavioral research in any of the biomedical areas, then they are going there. So it comes to NIH. Sometimes we get applications and we see that it's not related to NEI, but it doesn't go waste. We send it to the right people, and it gets reviewed, and still comes out of that $34 billion if it gets funded. NIH overall gets close to $35 billion a year, which is a lot of money, right? So any basic research question, if you are asking under the health services, that can go in. There is a program right now with Sudha Iyengar is doing with Rajiv Raman and so on. They are at Shankar Nethralaya, and this is Cleveland Clinic and Shankar Nethralaya, and they are working on genetics of diabetic retinopathy, and they are asking few questions. So it's a part of a bigger program, what the questions they are asking. But I think as standalone, we haven't put in anything like this. But what I can recommend is if you see somebody in India, if you find somebody in India who is interested in, we can have a program director actually look at and give exact critical evaluation. We have several program directors, program officers who work at extramural research, and I have a number of them who have helped the Indian PIs hone in their ideas. They would make the international calls and all that. That's not a problem anymore. So what I like to recommend, if you have an idea, and if you want to get our critical evaluation ahead of time before you put in all this much work, putting together a grant, let us know. I'll have a program officer evaluate it. Because, everybody is not an expert in everything. So somebody is a glaucoma person, and somebody is a cornea person, and retina person, and so on. And somebody might be interested in doing mobile health and asking basic research questions. So I'll have a program officer look at it, give an evaluation.
Last year on October 2018, we are submitted one project under the Indo-US.
Where are you? Can you identify yourself? Where are you? What's your name?
I am Dr. Ramkishore. I am doing PhD. At present, I am scientist in the Dr. RP Center.
Okay.
I am working under Dr. Jeevan Sintithia in the cornea section.
Okay.
I am submitted to the proteome and genome-wide association study of the novel chromosome and the biomarker expression in the keratoconus expression of the Indian population. I am 3 times visiting the DBT. Dr. Shalini will be there, but no one reply can be given.
When did you submit it?
Department of Biotechnology under the...
No. When did you submit it?
On October, I think.
Yeah. So right now, I can tell you, this is the third round that just started in October, November timeframe. It's being reviewed right now. So your Indian application at DBT,
Yes.
they will not respond to you until it's reviewed by a panel of specialists. And Baluji has been.
Now that some issues are now taken care of, we may have the next meeting more like about April, May.
Right. And we are doing the same thing at our end. Our application, you're American. Who is your American partner?
Vishal Haji, he is the...
I know Vishal at the University of UPMC.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so and Vishal works with us very closely,
Yeah,
and
told
we have actually helped him,
Yes.
and I personally helped Vishal.
Where are you from?
I am from
P-
RP Center.
RP Center.
Harpison.
We,
Good.
yeah, so DBT will not respond to you until the meeting takes place, where Dr. Baluji
Yeah.
has mentioned, and because we are reviewing on our side, and they'll be reviewing it in India, and we're going to meet either on phone or in person in the month of May, June, and then we'll look at both sides, and we'll look at the common denominator.
In your project proposal,
Yes,
have you already got the proposal from the US side?
yes,
You have it.
Their
Their RO1 proposal.
NEI and
Because we don't want that delay also. Okay. We'll do that. Somebody else also asked about the quantum of money.
Yeah.
Now, clearly it will be different in America compared to India. But a proposal of this kind is about 3 years, 5 years, something of that kind. You normally ask
Generally 4 years.
major equipment,
Yeah, 4 years.
manpower, consumables and so on. Could be anywhere of the order of about 60, 80 lakhs rupees to about a couple of crores of rupees.
And on our side, an average grant is typically runs for 4 years, about $400,000, $4 lakhs.
So that's a good point, but we might want to make it 4 years as well.
Yeah.
So that there's no, yeah.
So let me just, since we have time, and that's what I was hoping, unless there are more questions, let me give you some little bit more more information, which might be helpful to you or your colleagues. Thank you. Okay, so as I said, this is a multi-pronged approach. There are a lot of activities with the Indo-US interest, rather. One, you saw that we have intramural scientists who are being trained, postdoctoral fellows. Indians are obviously the right next to US. And that is a very, very productive program, builds a relationship. Second thing is this Indo-US program, the grants. The third one is that we started, and Indians are playing very important role in this. So this is an international genomics fellowship, and it's all expense paid. It's a little about, it's exactly $20,000 for the whole month, and we pay for the person coming to the US, staying the whole month, and we give the entire genomics training in terms of didactic training, in lab training. They get to do a special project. If they are clinician, they go to clinic and so on. They're not able to touch or do anything with the patient, obviously. There are laws in America, but they're able to observe and work with our clinicians on some, get to see what they do. And we keep them really busy for the whole month. So this program started about 4 years ago, and the very first recipient was a lady named Dr. Shalja Tibriwal from Shroff Hospital. So, and you can ask, and Shalja is doing really, really well. I met with her in Delhi, and you may want to contact her. You may tell colleagues that this is a good program, and with the success of this, so we've trained people from Ukraine, Brazil, we trained people from several other countries, Bangladesh, Pakistan, many people have come. And now, Dr. Paul Sieving, he just expanded this fellowship 5 times. So $1 lakh, obviously, is going to be spent. This year, we'll be awarding it to 5 people. And the applications, this year's applications are already done. People have, we are reviewing the applications right now. But make sure next year, keep watching our website. Next year, if you have, and this is really good for young junior people. Yeah, and this year we have actually brought it down to somebody who just has a MSc, a master's degree. Bring somebody at that level, really train the person, a PhD level, and the only thing that they have to have a guaranteed job in the U.S. because after a month they will come back. So we hope that this program helps India, especially if you're setting up a new lab, setting up new program. That will be good for Raipur, I guess. If you have your people applying. That's the detail of this thing, but it's also available on our website. The third thing which just happened is we have just approved a new ICO fellowship. It will be in ophthalmic genetics. So I gave a little bit of and Peter Wiedemann, he gave a background this morning, and we just agreed and finished that. We just need to finish signing off, which I intend to take care as soon as I get back home. And this international ICO fellowship will be exclusively in ophthalmic genetics. Again, people can be selected from anywhere. It will be for a clinician. So this will be for an MD. This one I'm looking at is for MSc or PhD level person or MD level person, for everyone. The ICO fellowship will be obviously a clinical fellowship exclusively in ophthalmic genetics. So it's a multi-pronged approach which is helping us bring closer to and developing international approach over there. Okay, so we have another about 20 minutes, and I'm quickly going to tell you another thing, another approach that, and take advantage of Dr. Takeshi Iwata, who is right here in the audience. This is really tremendous that 4 or 5 of us are here who have really played a key role in this. So Global Eye Genetics Consortium, and there will be a session tomorrow at 12 noon, right? And Dr. Iwata and I will be co-chairing that. So So I'm just going to give you a little bit on this, and if you are interested, you can come tomorrow and learn more about it. This is a consortium of members of about close to 200 members now, about 180 members from 30 countries right now. We got together, some of folks here, including, of course, the chairperson was at ARVO, and we founded it about 4 years ago. And as an Asian iGenetics Consortium, we changed the name since looking at the worldwide interest. At last ARVO meeting that Balaji mentioned about ARVO meeting, so we met in Honolulu, Hawaii, and all the membership, they voted to change the name, so it's called Global iGenetics Consortium. Here are the goals that really puts you in a very, very nice platform to collect genetic information, isolate the disease-oriented variants, understand and do a system for accurate diagnosis. It's a very clinical approach, at the same time, application of bench to bedside and bedside back to bench. And as I said, we'll learn more about it tomorrow. But what I'm saying that, we are very interested in unique patient population that exist all around the world. And I could not think of a better place that there is so many unique population here. And I was earlier mentioning to Samrat and Deepshikhaji that, the area you come from has a lot of very unique patient population. You can trace family history. They haven't moved in 5, 6, 10 years, 10 generations. And I would really recommend that you sit down with Dr. Iwata here and tell him about your area. Perhaps he would be interested and you could do some collaboration work with him. And tell him about the unique patient population. There may be many actually in Chhattisgarh, and similarly. So that's also a bigger approach. These are the countries that are participating. It's a global, and we look forward to having you at the session tomorrow if you want to learn more about it. And with the effort of Global iGenetics Consortium, the members have managed to, we all have managed to put together 2 volumes of the book in just 2 years, and we hope that the 3rd volume will be coming. We have already received a number of chapters work, so volume 3 will complete sometime this year, and we have volume 4 on the drawing board. And if you have an idea, anything that you bring a unique patient population, let me or Dr. Iwata know. We would love to have you on board. This is a very prestigious publisher, as you may know, Springer Nature. And the more importantly, this really addresses and brings everybody at one place together. All that they are close to 35 chapters each, and we'll have. So I'm going to invite, take advantage of Professor Iwata being here, and just say since we have few minutes, and then open it for if there are any other questions. If not, we'll step outside and we'll stay as long as you want. And okay, so Professor Iwata, we're just putting you up right without even telling you that.
Well, this Global iGenetics Consortium started in 2014 with just 4 countries, and now we have about 30 countries on board. And even today, I went to the ICO booth, and I met a professor from Africa, and he has links to about 18 groups in Africa. And immediately with Dr. Gupta from ICO, Vice President of ICO, we started talking about Africa. So I think we have pretty much covered Asia, China, Korea, of course India, Sri Lanka, Nepal. I was in Nepal. We have people from Turkey. Even we went to talk with the RP Foundation Israel. So we pretty much covered, and I think we're ready to go to Africa. So I think we're going to Africa. Eventually we'll go to South America. So if you have any people who are interested in ocular genetics in these regions, Asia, Africa, and South Africa, please contact me, and then we will incorporate into our consortiums. we already have connection with U.S. and European people. They have been doing it for 100 years. So we have so many collaboration. We will let them do their work, and then we will try to expand our work into the Africa and South America. So please join us. Thank you very much.
About 3:30, and I'm noticing that we have few more minutes. We are happy to stay here, but let's open it for if there are any questions, anything, or if you would like to meet just outside, or we could do that. We could have a word with, on a cup of tea, anything. Dr. Shukla? Pardon, sir?
Related to genetics only, it's not above genetics or beyond genetics, as I understand.
No, this one is for genetics, the Global Genetics Consortium, GEGC. But the Indo-US program is essentially in all areas of research. It's not exclusive to genetic. It used to be, but we expanded it into essentially in everything. So you could work with, as a university or a center or institute, have an American collaborator, and it will be parallelly funded.
There's necessarily must have a collaborator in US.
You must have a collaborator in the U.S.
How do
And,
you-
and by the way, so just on that topic, we have actually worked out, taken care of a lot of export-import issues, our foreign ministry issues on both sides, because it's not easy to actually work with a foreign collaborator. So all those things, our predecessor, they took care of it. So those things are already built in nicely, all approved, right?
So how do we know if I'm working something? How do I know who's working the same subject outside?
So that's something, if you're a scientist in that subject, you have to know, because I can give you some names, but the thing is that it's not legal for me to give you a specific American, because for me, I work for all of them, right? So how can I give you just one name? It says, go to him. You have to do your own literature search. You have to actually make your own contact. Very good question, sir. You have to make your own contact, bottom line. You have to actually reach out to them on your own. We cannot be a middleman. We cannot recommend a single or a specific person. It's not just fair. Because there may be, 10 other Americans working on that topic. They may be interested in working with India. It's, we'll not be able to give you just one person's name.
Oh, well, of course, what I'm working, ocular trauma, that's my subject. And I know most of the authors who are working in this field.
Right.
But I haven't come across any person who's working on the subject in which I am working. So that could be a...
He's saying that he hasn't come and with any person but he's
We handle it like any other project where the idea comes, we look at what the facilities available are and what the collaboration is going to be like. So identical to any other project proposal. You have data available? Yeah. We have data available on, okay, because these days it's quite easy to find out what you just have to go to PubMed or, groups of that kind to find out what is the kind of work that, for example, your institute has. In terms of research, in terms of publications, and the proposal, we have a look at it. Suppose a brand new, young institution has just got started, and there's nobody who is well known. You look at the project proposal, okay? And the project proposal is something that is really, then you call that PI, the investigator, and have a dialogue. This is standard. This is done in among Indian agencies. Yes. So it's not a major issue, okay? So even if you do not have all the facilities, all the publications and so on, you have an idea. If you have an idea, you just have to point that out. Your idea will be protected. It won't be taken away by somebody else.
So just to add to what Baluji said, you have the literature information, and you can easily find out if there are any Americans who are working on anything that relates to peripherally and your idea or their idea is an extension of your idea. And that's why people go to international meeting. I met you in Barcelona. There were a lot of Americans there, and I told you to really connect with some of them. There are many folks who are interested in trauma cases, who are interested in learning about unique cases that have toxin exposure. You just saw Paul Sieving's slide that he's asking for the information. Dr. Natarajan has actually a lot of interest in it. You used to be the president of Trauma Society of India? Yeah. So how do you find an American collaborator? That's the question. We cannot legally, as you know, we cannot recommend, you know.
That is the Indian PI's job.
There is a lot of work from the defense in US where they are having part of the American Society for Ocular Trauma as well as the International Society of Ocular Trauma, and they also have funds. NIH, I saw, has given a grant for a trauma project with them. So I think, as Dr. John Prakash said, it's our duty to find a partner, not the NIH to find. And we have a...
I understand that, but the what work, I have sent a copy to you, I think you haven't read so far. I have sent a copy of that paper to you also.
Right.
Same thing. But to my knowledge, I couldn't find anywhere else pertaining to that work. So that's why I was asking that how to get a partner. Anyway, I could
Let me
just
give
send...
you one example.
Right.
It has happened several years, for several decades now. You're interested in finding out what's the difference between what my condition is, whether it is an eye condition or a heart condition, diabetes, whatever, and an NRI who's sitting there, a person of Indian origin, right, who has moved over. He has not, his genes have not changed. His lifestyle has changed. His khana pina has changed. Okay. So do you then want to look at, for example, what are the pathological changes that has happened? This has been happening. You might have an idea of that kind with respect to a given disease. But no matter what you have to do, sir, you have to get someone from the other side who is interested. That job cannot be done by people like us. It has to be done by the investigators from India and from abroad.
So I could...
Okay, good. Shall we, there's no other questions or something? Shall we thank?
I suggest Dr. Shukla, he has Dr. Purandara Besan and Dr. His son, who both are very good in Dhananjay, who both can write to them on sir's behalf with his idea, because they all are working together. So, sir, he can do the referencing, and I'll talk to him, Dhananjay, to find the person working in US, and also Purandara Besan.
I have searched in PubMed, I think, and I couldn't find any so far. So it's really, that's what I'm...
No, sir, they will do their search, and I'll also, when I find out, I'll give you. Because US, American Academy of Ophthalmology publishes on ocular trauma, and recently the ICO is doing it for the last 2 years. I don't know whether the survey you took part. Every year, ICO takes a survey during Christmas time for the firecracker injuries of the eye. So it is there, and American Academy also has got several videos which say, so you can find the person who are working. And just now Dr. Gerald Schultz, who has come from LA area, he has also said his center is doing a lot of ocular trauma.
I know the ocular trauma you've seen, we had a big conference in Chennai, and I think we had called so many experts on ocular trauma. You were there that time. So what I'm really, I am quantifying ocular trauma. That's what I'm aiming at. A method of quantifying. So this, of course, I have said, and they refused to publish my publication. They said, you only 2 references. I said, there's nothing I could find. How could you add references? So they insisted, no, you must add at least some references before we can publish it. So I had to just mention 4 or 5 names. I mean, somehow, indirectly. But for this particular work, I could not find any reference. And we had a big conference on ocular trauma in Chennai. Dr. Natarajan knows, he was there at that time. And there also, I do not think that anybody published any paper, presented any paper related to that. I mean, that's, so that I was thinking, because this, you said that you must be collaborating somebody there. It's quite all right. But anyway, I'll try for Nataraj might help him. But
Yeah,
thank you.
good. Good. Thank you all.
Anyway, I thank Balu, especially came all the way, and thank Nak for being a anchorman behind me, and John and everybody, because I think this is still a problem of the advances in vision research. We are writing books, but we have 22.